First, though, discussing the road safety for cyclists and the record in Norfolk, which has taken a knock in the last week. On Sunday night, 2 men were killed in a crash in Billingford near Diss. They were riding their bikes at the time. A week earlier, the swimming coach Jane Blackwell died following a crash involving a car in Norwich. She was cycling on Newmarket Road. There are calls to make things safer for people on 2 wheels. Liam Calvert is a Green City councillor in Norwich.
I think it's not taken seriously enough, to be quite honest with you. I think we could be spending an awful lot more money. This is the highways, could be spending an awful lot more money making cycling safe, because this has enormous benefits for the city as a whole. So what it means is every person who is on their bike is one fewer person in their car. So every time you're sat in traffic, sat in your car in a queue, every person on a bike is one less person in that queue.
Well, let's meet our next guest on this morning's programme, Peter Silburn. Peter is from the Norwich Cycling Campaign. Good morning.
Good morning.
How safe do you feel when you're on your bike?
Well, generally it's safe, but I have to say with the recent deaths we've had, it does make me feel quite nervous. We've had 2 cyclists killed in the city so far this year. Ben Stewart, who was killed on the Ring Road in February, and Jane Blackwell, who you mentioned, who was killed on Newmarket Road the Sunday before last. And in addition to that, Dominique Hechenova was killed in Wharton back in March, and Alfie Brown, the 13-year-old boy, was killed near North Walsham last month. And of course, just yesterday we had the awful news that 2 more cyclists were killed near Diss on Sunday. We don't yet know their names. So that's 6 people killed just trying to get about by bike in Norfolk. Now that's a shocking statistic. And of those 6 deaths that I mentioned, in 5 of them, the driver was arrested for dangerous or careless driving, and 1 was a hit and run. So cyclists need to be protected from that danger.
It's clear that is the case, but how can it be done? We're living in a real world here of very busy roads, aren't we?
Well, precisely, that's the problem. I mean, cycling is not a dangerous activity. The danger comes from cars. So we know what we need to do to make people safe. There's 2 things. So on fast, busy roads, we need protected cycle routes that actually connect up and take people to the places they want to go to, not little bits of cycle paths where it's convenient to fit in a cycle path that doesn't inconvenience car drivers. And the second thing we need to reduce both the amount of traffic and the speed of traffic on urban residential roads. So that's things like 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, measures to stop through traffic. Now, these measures not only make our streets safer, but also a lot pleasanter. No one wants a rat run past our house. So these are the sorts of things we need.
Isn't that what the authorities in Norfolk have been doing, though, over many years, gradually at least?
Well, Norfolk County Council are building some cycle infrastructure, but it's not enough. It's not of sufficient quality, and it's happening at too slow a pace. We need to speed things up quite a lot. Now we all know about the Netherlands. That's the go-to place for best cycle infrastructure. But let's put the Netherlands aside for one moment and look instead at places like Paris, at New York, and Ghent in Belgium. Now, these are all places where city leaders have taken bold decisions to change the way their cities work, essentially to take space away from cars and make it over to people. Now, that's obviously caused some resistance, all the way up to death threats in some cases. You know what? In each of those cases, those leaders were re-elected on increased majorities after making those bold decisions. So making your city more people-friendly is politically advantageous. And we need that bold political will from our leaders in Norfolk.
Do you think, on a general note, cyclists have a responsibility as well to obey the highway code in a fashion that some don't seem to? We've had a note this morning from a texter saying some cyclists in Norwich seem to have no idea about the stopping distance of a car, travelling on the roads around Newmarket Road area, going at less than 20 miles per hour. I've had cyclists with no indication turn right across me, and that requires sharp braking, and it's frightening, says this caller.
Well, everyone needs to obey the highway code, but the highway code is quite clear on the hierarchy of responsibility, and that is that those that cause the most danger on the road bear the most responsibility. And at the top of the hierarchy are lorries and cars. So it's car drivers and motorised vehicles that cause the risk to people on the road. It's not pedestrians and cyclists that are killing people. It's cars that are killing people. So they need to bear. That's the source of the danger.
Yes, and safety is the most important thing, isn't it? And something I was told a long time ago, of course, and it's common sense really, in that most cyclists are car drivers as well. So it's that they almost change behaviours when they get behind the wheel of a car. Would that be your experience?
Well, that's a well-known phenomenon, yes, that a perfectly reasonable person gets behind a car. I mean, it's not necessarily. It's just this has been pointed out to me, and I think it's quite a stunning thought that for most people, when you go about your daily life, you're not going to endanger anyone's life. But when you get behind the wheel of a car, that's the one time in your life for most of us where we can kill someone. So you need to bear that in mind when you get behind the wheel of a car. But you're absolutely right. A lot of cyclists drive. I drive a car. So we're often the same people. And the public highway is there for everyone to use. But for some reason, at some point, we seem to have decided that the main use of the road is for cars, whether that's for driving or parking. And we need to change that.
And this hierarchy you mentioned just now, that's been quite a major change to the emphasis, hasn't it? I'm sure you welcome that, but is it working?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think it's only been in place now for just over a year or so. And there probably needs to be some research into that. I don't think I can answer that question just yet, but that's a very good question.
Of course, bike riders have their part in the hierarchy, and pedestrians are the ones that need the most consideration according to that hierarchy. So we had someone earlier saying quite often that they feel endangered by cyclists on the pavement. So that's something to bear in mind as well, isn't it?
Well, I mean, absolutely. So this is a very good point that what we're calling for is segregated cycle lanes, not shared use on the pavement. So, but what we've done in this country is build a lot of so-called shared use paths, which essentially is where there's a cycle path on the pavement. And that doesn't, as you quite rightly point out, that doesn't help anyone. So we need much better, fully segregated, protected cycle lanes. But as I reiterate, the main problem is protecting cyclists from cars. And it's not just dangerous drivers, just the simple fact of having a cycle route down a 60-mile-an-hour road, which is a lot of our country lanes are, is just crazy. You can't expect anyone to feel safe in that situation. So we need proper protected cycle lanes on busy roads, and to reduce the amount of traffic and reduce speeds in residential areas, so people both walking and cycling will feel safe.
Peter Silburn from the Norwich Cycling Campaign, thank you very much.